Welcome everybody to Pop It Like It's Hot, your super dope popper podcast, Last Man Standing, King of the Hill. We are brought to you by RIW Hobbies and Games in Livonia, Michigan. I'm here. I'm Dave. I'm out here. I've got co-hosts. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, what's up? Mike and Mike.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right.
And we're gonna talk about some tournament results, and then we're gonna talk about the deck that always wins, the red deck. The red deck wins, the RDW, the one that smacks your opponent around. Let's just jump right in.
2 2s for one.
Yeah, I mean, drawbacks are real, but when you run hot, they don't exist. So, but let's just jump into the pool of Pauper Challenge results. Talking about Tron is the new king in town. There's no room for Jessica anymore. Tron's here. So we had Hampoos taking her down, the recent challenge here. Fog Tron, number 2, Affinity, Orzhov Pestilence, Hellsow Tron, Burb Tron, Boral's Bully with the Guardian of the Guild Pact. Another Fog Tron, Lord Egg is the gentleman's name, or gentle lady's name. And we have Burn rounding out the top 8. So, what do you guys think of Tron being dope again? Is that cool? Or?
Well, I'm okay with Tron being the best deck. I was okay with it before. It's not like a deck that I fear too much. I understand that it's incredibly strong, and I know it's a frustrating deck to lose to. But overall, I'm okay with it being the best deck. It still has its weaknesses that are glaring, so I think you can punch through. I hope that it's not like a ban target. I hope that that's not like the discussion that we're gonna have down the road about how it needs to be banned or whatever is going on with all that. But it's obviously strong in this unfigured out meta.
Well, I mean, I'm not even sold on it being like even that the deck to beat right now. Like, so you have Stompy taking up a decent amount of meta share, came in at the second most played deck in the challenge, and I believe it's the most played deck in the leagues right now. Looking at MTG Goldfish, and they're coming in at 11% right now for the meta. It's just, I think that's still a deck that you mainly have to game plan against, more so than you would Tron. I think it's pretty telling who the pilots were that took it to the top 8, and probably skewed the results a little.
Yeah, and I think actually diving into the Reddit post about the challenge, Hamsu1, or if I'm screwing that name up, I apologize. I believe he was running Hellsaw's list exactly, right? I think they were talking about it. He even said thank you to Hellsaw. So
I would have to look. I believe they're both on the Lone Missionary plan and all that. They're on the same exact list.
And you're right about the pilot thing. It's not a surprise. Like the three of the names there, especially if Hampoos. I don't know Lord Egg. What I'm saying is 3 of the names there are unknown Tron lists that are just remarkable pilots and brewers of that deck. Burb is no joke either when it comes to Tron.
Oh yeah,
Pure God amongst men, honestly.
Yeah.
Lord Egg just quietly wins a lot. I
don't know the name.
Yeah. Well, he's up there in the results for challenges.
I do want to backtrack onto the affinity list at number 2, though. There is something notable about that we kind of glossed over. This Mantle of Tides running in affinity.
Yeah.
Seems like a really weird fit, right? Like, what are you triggering that with? Is that just being triggered by Thoughtcast? Is that what we're trying to do there?
Well, you have Thoughtcast, you have Chromatic Star,
Okay.
Prophetic Prism. What else you got going on there? You got Witching Well in the deck. So it seems like, I would say you can trigger it quite reliably. It's from the looks of it.
And
Five.
then-
What is it? Make your guy a 5/6. If you got a forger or an enforcer, it seems significantly better.
I mean,
Yeah.
So it dodges like what every removal at a 5/6 becomes a virtual serpent type of situation.
increasing
Yeah,
the
that seems
clock
good.
and bigger butts seem relevant.
That seems good, actually. No, I really didn't put the thought into it about the part that it becomes a 5/6 most likely, and outside of, well, even with Forger, you're going for Metalcraft, so that makes sense. So you're reducing the cost of your big mirror enforcers while also getting Metalcraft and making 5/6 bodies. All right, all right.
Yeah, a Flayer Husk is, to me, that card is ass cheeks. I would like to see people stop playing that card. I hate it.
I've never liked it either. I don't really get what that card is doing outside of just trying to make affinity work, right? Like you're reducing
Yeah.
cost or getting Metalcraft. I agree. It doesn't seem like a good card to me.
All right, just a spring leaf drum, and it's an artifact, and it gets you going on one, and it just feels miserable. I'm not a fan of that card.
My guess, Blue Elemental Blast and Weather the Storm in the deck probably got a lot mileage, given the amount of burn that showed up this week. So that's probably why we're seeing it so high in the list. Probably, I don't know how much planning was done against Affinity as well.
I don't know. I've been off of Affinity recently just because I keep seeing so much Gorilla Shaman. It's everywhere, man. Like I don't want to play Affinity anymore because of it.
Well, I'm looking through these lists right now, and I'm not seeing a whole lot of shamans in total. So I mean, that's usually when Affinity seems to rise, and we saw that this week, and that we had like 69% win rate for Affinity in this challenge. So
Yeah, maybe it's different than challenge. I speak from just doing 1v1s in leagues, and it just seems like I see Shaman everywhere.
oh yeah.
So
I mean, it's such a good hoser. It's very, if I'm running red, it's very difficult for me, to not run Gorilla Shaman just because it just like gets that auto win and kind of feels good.
yeah, just pop their lands, and it's
Yeah.
rough. I was running the ATOG shift list for a while, and the beauty of that was you had the snow lands, so like Shaman was a little less good. Now that you're back on normal Affinity lands where they're all just artifact lands, like ugh, it's so gross when that thing lands.
Yeah. Well, you're not are you still like incentivized to like play Affinity or artifact lands, or if you just want to play around artifact hate, can you still like viably in that deck and ATOG shift just run like basics? Is that like
So-
a thing you can do?
The trick to that, I believe, would be the fact that Astrolabe replaced itself, so the cost was very, very low because you're still getting the artifact out of it. You're still getting another card back. Running basics, you're not adding anything to your game plan. In fact, you're just slowing yourself down.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like the downside would be higher than what low percentage points you get from, not getting beat out by a artifact hate or Mox Monkey.
Just run more blasts.
Yeah.
Like I'm already at 4. You can run up to 8 if you really think Shaman's that, and you want to stick on Affinity. Like, that's it, man. More blasts.
I'm intrigued by the 18th place deck, the blue-black, like Reanimator deck where you get the Striped Riverwinder into play. What do you guys have? You guys tested that deck out, or?
I haven't seen it in a long time. I want to say the Pauper 1K, the first one I went to at RAW, some dude tore me apart with that deck.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I haven't really seen it, but I have seen it pop up here and there in like on Reddit in maybe it's challenges or maybe it's leagues, but I do see it popping up from time to time.
I did.
Yeah.
I did try that whole combination of Striped Riverwinder. I tried lists with that in the past when we were still using Gush and Foil at the time. It seemed all right. It just felt like in that particular version, it just felt like a worse UBX. I don't know. I haven't really tried out any reanimator with Blue Splash since I did a red black reanimator like a month ago, and the deck just felt very meh.
Yeah, red black animator seems rough to me. Anytime I see it, it seems so variance. Like it just falls on its face so often, you know?
Yeah, sometimes you're just like looting cards away and you just like don't get anything accomplished.
What do you guys, if Tron is, let's just for argument's sake assume Tron is the number one deck to beat going into next week. What deck would you guys bring to the table? Like for me, I'd probably bring a red deck wins or a Stompy, maybe something like that, or maybe Elves. What deck would you guys eye to take down if everybody's on maybe mid? I don't know, maybe a lot of Black, White, or Boros and Tron.
Go for it, Mac. Go for it.
You know what I want to say.
I'll give you your time to shine. Go for it.
It's 200% lands because lands just wrecks Tron. Instant speed Bajuka Bog just dismantles their whole game plan. But I mean, if we're just talking about actual real decks, Tier, I agree. I think Stompy is a great deck. Your matchup's not terrible. They have to draw really well to beat you while you're on Stompy. I remember playing that matchup quite a few times when I was back on Tron, and you don't get a whole lot of time to get your wheels spinning. You have to make Tron by like turn 4, and you have to get that fog going. And that's not always a guarantee in Tron. I can see like these lists though currently they're like Halasal and all of them. They seem to be more consistent at that. Burb's list that was on at the time was more greedy. He even at one point in time was running only a single moments piece in his entire list. That was really rough. I had to go up to 2 because I'm not Burb. I can't manage a single moments piece in those sticky spots, But you're looking at like right now, like looking at Hampu's list, he's got well, I guess this is Halasal's list, three moments pieces and 4 Stonehorn dignitaries, 2 lone missionaries in the sideboard, another moments piece in the sideboard, and yeah, that seems pretty good if you're trying to beat aggro right now. So I don't like maybe in that version you're like probably better insulated against aggro, but Stompy gets low to the ground and just can probably get there a decent amount of times.
Well, it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone how much I can't stand Stompy, so I would never, ever sleeve that up. But as far as like what I would play if I only expect Tron, I mean, I'm okay with playing Burn, although I don't think that's like a sure thing against Tron. But I've mentioned this before. Mono Blue Delver is something that I do really enjoy playing in this format, and it so happens that actually is a very good deck against Tron. So I mean, probably be my go-to.
I think some people were on that same plan with 20% of that meta from the challenge running Burn with the most played deck, and they did not fare well. Right. And when you're looking at those Tron sideboards, it's pretty easy to tell that they came with a game plan against decks like that.
Yeah, I'm looking at Hellsaws right now, and there's 4 Blue Blasts, and Lone Missionary is no slouch against that deck. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know, and actually the main deck, Pulse and Monster 2 hurts. That's what I'm saying. I don't think Burn is really the deck to choose. That's why it probably would be Mono Blue for me. I was talking to you guys before we even started this. I've been venturing into Elves. I don't think that Elves is terrible against Tron. Depending on how they set up, how quickly they set up, obviously. Honestly, it would be Mono Blue. Mono Blue is my go-to in a Tron meta, because it's a solid deck against that deck.
Yeah, I keep calling back to my good old Tron days, because I haven't played the deck since Labe even was a card. But I remember Burb talking. I think it was actually after he won like 2 challenges or 3 challenges in a row, something crazy like that. He took down those, and he was talking about what matchups he's afraid of, and Elves was one of them. I think he even said that's was his worst matchup at the time. Like I said, I don't know if that's changed. I would have to play the deck out a little bit and get a feel for that. But I imagine that any deck that's like, the obvious answer is going to be, are you low to the ground? Can you beat fog locks? You know, stuff like that. Like, or can you interact with the graveyard? Any deck that's looking to attack on those axes, you're gonna have a decent matchup against Tron.
I mean, in paper, I've even played Vogels to draws and success too by just having Fling on the board. That's a possibility as well.
Oh yeah. Fling does a number on Tron lists that run light counters. For sure.
And I think so. What you can even get from this conversation where we're kind of trailing around and like talking about decks. This is why I'm okay with it being a very popular, quote unquote, best deck, right? Because all of us have plans. We can attack it. I don't believe that it is an unbeatable deck by any stretch.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's ever been that way. I think Tron's just a polarizing deck for the community, probably because the way it enacts its game plan, not so much about like its dominance.
Right. Because the rhetoric around it is always, oh, this soulless person or this person is just a piece of trash because they're picking up Tron. Which hey. If you want to play a hard control deck in Pauper, it's a good one to pick up, right?
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's tough deck to beat. Yeah, like I think the Prison Lock endgame is a feel bad. Probably combined with the people you see playing it contributes to that sentiment. It's a fun deck, dude. It's a toolbox deck, though. I mean, you gotta love it, but.
Yeah, I haven't picked it up yet. Post Astro, and I'm not gonna dive into that again. But post Astro, I'm kind of back in that world of like, I can't find a deck I really like again, and I don't know. I am debating. I got Mana Traders back again, so I think I'm gonna rent Tron finally and just tinker around and see if it's actually a deck I do enjoy.
Well, I mean, you were enjoying familiars there for a moment, and I mean, you're still getting the flicker loops and some silly things going on there. So I mean, maybe you'll find a lot of the things you enjoyed from familiars in there.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. That's actually kind of what led me to that thought process was how much I really did enjoy Fan. Like I really loved that deck, man. I really do. So. We'll see. We'll see when we get there.
I mean, it's going to have a little bit more feels bad for you because the mana's not going to be perfect as it was with Familiars and Astro, but with Tron being probably the best deck at beating itself, getting just bad draws. I know the London Mulligan helps soothe that over a little bit, but
I'm hoping I can make them feel bad by my mismatched Urza's lands that I plan on buying,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, as someone who firmly believes in I'm being an elitist here, but if you don't have black bordered antiquities Tron lands, then you should probably not play Tron.
Fair.
Just wrap it up and go.
I always give the guys, up at RIW crap when I see the white border lands. I'm like, you're doing it wrong.
Now, what if I rolled in there with like 8th or 9th edition foil?
We're no longer friends. Oh, foil. Okay, yeah. Well, I mean,
well, I'm dropping like $100 a piece on those.
Right. I was gonna tell you, you probably have better ways to spend your money. I don't even like the art. I don't like. I take the antiquities way over the foil ones. I don't even understand why those prices are so sky high. Maybe my tastes are off base here. Maybe I'm the weird one.
No, I think most people share your love for the old lands. I don't know. I like white border, so if I can buy white border, I like to do that.
I'm desensitized to the white border Tron. I'm just like, I don't even see it anymore. I'm just like, I've probably like one random 5th edition tower, and it's just like totally out of place. But I'm like, oh yeah, I like that one. It's not a set, but I just have one of them. I'm like, I'm just used to it, I guess. But normally that would irk me.
I mean, if you put it next to, if you sleeve that up next to like Antiquities one, then maybe you'd feel differently.
Right. So next week, play Ancient Grudge in your sideboard, win said tournament. That's my one takeaway, I guess. Play
I
more
don't
than
know.
one Ancient Grudge.
If I'm trying to win a bit, like, yeah, that's great when you're getting into the top 8 and you have a deck that's like a smaller meta portion, but then representing a very large portion of the top 8, which is a reason to be concerned. Yes, but I mean, you're looking at a single tournament of like 72 people. I think it was 72, 73. So I mean, it doesn't matter. But I'm like, I would look more into like, how am I going to beat Burn, Stompy, and Bully? I don't think Burn's going to show up at 20% again. But I mean, just like, I think the meta will always kind of like skew like higher usage of aggressive decks, and that's where you should be targeting your or teching against. I mean, you can see that within the Fogtron decks themselves, they tech very heavily against aggro within their main deck, running 4 Stonehorn Dignitaries. They're obviously not thinking about the mirror and beating their mirror there. It's just something they have to do.
Well, and a lot of that has to do too with, well, not so much the challenge, but just MTGO in general. A lot of people play the aggro decks just because they can churn through games, right?
Right.
They believe they're a high enough skill player that they can just get through a bunch of games, and at least 3-2, they're getting their money back on the regular,
Right. I mean, but for things like the challenge or whatever, I don't know. Like, I've never been much of a league grinder myself, but I imagine there's a difference between grinding out, your average leagues and then going into a challenge.
Sure.
For your deck selection in that regard. But yeah, I mean, that definitely can account for the higher percentage in the meta at large when we're factoring leagues.
It's something. So you did the percentages here. Something to point out too about any of you prospective Burn players out there. That's a 39% match win rate. Is that what I'm seeing? Yeah.
Yep.
So like when you put your little sleeves on your lightning bolts and you think you're really going to get someone, just realize like these are some of the top players playing in a challenge, and it's 39% win rate. So you're not getting people that often.
I didn't really I didn't get deep into the names of who was running what these Burn pilots were, but I mean, when you have that many Burn players and only one seems to actually put up decent results, I'm sure that percentage gets way worse. I don't even think there's if I'm not mistaken, I don't even think there's another Burn list within the top 32 of the challenge. I mean, feel free to correct me on that if you see it, but
it makes
it just
had
a
makes a lot
very
of sense.
poor showing.
When you look at what else is there, you have Boros running Strands, right? You have all your Tron lists with tons of life gain. Were there Weather the Storm in the Tron list too, or is that a different?
Yeah.
Doing
No. Yep. So between all the Tron decks that you have, between all the 4 Tron decks in the top 8, you have 4 Lone Missionaries, 12 Hydroblasts / Blue Elemental Blast, 9 Dispels, 3 Weather the Storms, and every deck ran a single Pulse Marasa in the main. So I mean, that's a great deal of hate for Burn.
Right, and so like it's hard to punch through that with Burn. And even our topic deck, I think, is one of the reasons why that might be a better pick. As long as you can try to get through the fog lock, like red deck wins or these decks with persistent creatures, at least they can keep punching through with a lot of damage. Burn, you get the opposing player gaining 6 or more on you, you're set back turns at that point. You know what I mean? It's tough.
Yeah.
So just okay. So Burn got 8th place, 10th place, 12th, and 29th.
Okay.
But yeah.
That's within the top 32. Okay.
Yeah.
So some other guys got a little bit further.
Oh, and I did see in your notes here that there's 9 Dispel, and you made a comment about the fact that they are good against Burn. From my experience, I don't find Dispel to be good against Burn.
Well,
so you guys do?
Oh yeah.
okay, so if I'm running like, say I'm running like 4 Dispel on my sideboard and like 4 Hydroblasts on my sideboard, you know, as a 4 and 4, just a hypothetical. I'm probably not jamming all 4 Dispel because it's not the greatest card because they have a great deal of sorceries, creatures, and you got Curse of the Pierce Heart, a lot of things that it's just going to completely whiff on. But when you're just looking to survive some churns, just getting like a card for card with Bolt, I mean, it's not a bad rate.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what would you rather have, Dispel or Condescend? I mean,
So-
I want early
So
interaction.
in the Tron list, they're already running Blue Blast. I feel like Blue Blast is just better. Well, it is. That's actually not even an argument.
Right.
Like, you can't argue that it's better. But Dispel, in a world where we're not talking about a ton of Ephemerate, which maybe that's what it's trying to target, is Flickers and Ephemerate more so than Burn.
Oh, yeah,
I don't
Yeah,
think Burn is the consideration there. Because Dispel, and I'm with you guys, so I've played a lot of blue decks, blue control, and to me, the only, like, when you're matched up against Burn, I bring in 1, maybe 2 Dispel at most. At most.
Right. Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying though. Yeah, 1 or 2 Dispel, and then you just like pack your full, you know, play set of Hydroblasts, you know, or Blue Elemental Blast right in there. But yeah, I'm not going to go that deep on Dispel, especially if you're only going to go that deep on Dispel if you just like lack better ways of dealing with Burn within your sideboard. But
Sure.
I 100% agree. You're going to use your Dispels for more of, you know, counter wars and all that, and sniping Ephemerates and Ghostly Flickers, more so, and that's probably their main consideration in the sideboard. But the you know, you play things in the sideboard like Dispel because they have utility in other matchups.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, living the dream of them being foolish and sacking their last 2 lands to a Fire Blast and Dispelling that doesn't happen often. Just putting out there.
Yeah, well, I mean, if your opponent's kind enough to cast that into your open blue mana, then yeah, I mean, please, anyone playing me, do that. Especially on lands, I need the help.
Yeah, I think the counter war point is pretty valid when they're red or blue blasting and you've got a 1 mana answer, or if you're looping, just having a 1 mana counter. It's hard counter, obviously, in the burn situation. Typically I'll bring Dispel in and I like it when it's better than the replacement, but not as like, oh, like this is great. But yeah, counter Fire Blast, counter Lightning Bolt, but like it's also a tutor target for mystical teachings for if you've got 5 open, you know, and 2 colored sources, you're like, all right, counter this, and then I can start the loop of, you know, just kind of see what they got.
Yeah, even like looking at the lists themselves, like I'm looking at like 3 Denarova Horror. Those are getting cut in the burn. I feel like I'm not interested in jamming any of my horrors. My Stonehorn Dignitaries are pretty much next to useless. Moments piece. So you got what's that? 6, 9, 10. I'm looking at 10 cards right there alone that I'm going to be cutting in that matchup if I can. So you got like 4 Hydroblasts coming, 4 the 2 lone missionaries, so that's 6. So I mean, and then 3 Dispels, so that's like a perfect 10 right there, coming right in. And I think Dispel's above those replacements.
I could see that. I guess. There's been times.
It looks like also
I've
for
been
the mirror match.
Yeah, for sure. There's just been times where I've been on the blue deck playing against Burn, and I've overboarded in Dispel trying to be cute with it or whatever, and it's just been miserable. Because, like, they're, you know, casting Chain Lightning, and then skewer the critics, and you're like, well, I just took 9, and
Right.
I have useless cards in my hand.
Yeah, and you know, maybe that's just like a consideration on how you play with Dispel in hand. You just like, if I'm gonna advance my board state or like snipe a bolt, I'm just gonna advance my board state instead.
Yeah, I always seem to get lucky when I make really narrow sideboard decisions. Like I remember bringing in a null against Burn, and it probably sounds dumb as hell, but I always
ridiculous.
seem to get people with it. Like
It's probably
I
just
seem
for
to
not
get
playing
people with
around it.
Dispel.
That's just 4D chest right there. Like getting
No.
I mean, if he has the open blue, they can assume Hydroblast, so like they're playing into it anyway, right?
Right, yeah.
I mean, if
For
I'm
sure.
on burn, I'm like, yo, do you have it? I'm not gonna sit back and play cautious. I'm gonna be like, all right, well,
Yeah, for
the
the most
longer
part,
I
I'm the same.
wait, like if I wait, then they will have it, like eventually. So
Yep.
just jam it and test the waters, and then it gives me information. And if they have it, they have it. But then I want to jam the next one.
That's
Like
why
I
I
don't know.
never play decks like Burn, because I can't ever step into that mindset of aggression. If I'm given the choice to dirtle, I'll dirtle with even the most aggressive decks. This is so bad.
All right. Like I'll make plays with an aggressive red deck where I'm just like, all right, well, I'm gonna do it right now on my main phase, just to get this damage in now. Like I don't know. It's I guess you could play it a little more safe and cautious and timely, but I'm just like they're tapped out. I'm gonna do my damage now instead of giving them a chance to interact, type of thing. But
Yeah.
I'll go for it. I don't want to do the dance of playing around it because I've been on the other side too much where I'm fronting trying to look like I have something. I don't have it. And then they wait too long and now I do have it and I just look like I had it the whole time. That's like it's like I did not have anything and you waited way too long and then I did have it and you're like, oh, they always have it. It's like, yeah, I always have it. But I don't know. I play both sides of that coin, so I don't know. I just jam it, see if they got it. If they didn't got it, they're dead. I'm like, all right. I don't know. Are we good on the challenge, or we want to any other things sticking out from? I mean, I feel like Boros Bullies was setting the tone. People brought
Yeah.
Tron, and now it's. I
Yep.
think well, we pointed out what the decks
It's
were
that
like.
constant rotation, yeah. Like that's what we expected. And then next week we'll see Delver. You know, we know this rotation. We know how that works. And you were actually talking about it just before we got on here about doing a future episode of this paper rock scissors approach where we just talk about decks that beat each other. And I think that maybe next week we're gonna do that.
Yeah, we always seem to. There's never seems to be a consensus of this beats that. I think Pilot has a lot to do with the lines you take. Like me and other Mike were talking. It was like Stompy feels like a deck where you always have a fork in the road of, trying to forecast what their hand is or what they could have in their deck to, like, hey, should I make a bigger creature or go wide or tap out on this turn and then leave mana open for vines this
Yeah.
turn? Like, or you could kind of play out of a situation or you could walk right into what they have. And it feels like a deck you could win almost every game depending on how you play it, but you don't, know the perfect line to take. And
Well, I'm sure the more skilled and experienced pilots like our local Stompy expert Chris, I'm sure these things are second nature to him by now. Just like knowing, like a guy like me, who plays walls, Tron, lands, all these dirtly kind of decks. I'm not gonna know if I'm just sitting there like we were playing. Mike and I were playing. We were testing his Rakos Monarch deck that he was trying out, and I was sitting there with Vines of Asswood in my hand, and I just held up a green instead of casting a second creature, and then he goes ahead and gets me with a Chainer's Edict, and now my Vines of Asswood, and I wasted mana. I don't play that deck. I'm sure Chris would have probably cringed at my decisions every step of the way.
yeah, could be. I don't know. It's not a deck I'm too familiar with, but it just feels like I just see the hands, and I'm just pretty surprised how much you could take from it. But just I don't know. Like you seem to have a fork in the road moment, and every maybe turn 2 or 3, and you're like, all right.
Yeah. I wanted to.
There's no really walking back from it.
I wanted to double back to that comment about maybe that rotation of going into Mono Blue Delver, or going into Delver. I think Mike said it's going to go back to Delver next week, and I gotta say I think I disagree with that. Doesn't Bully and Boros Monarch just beat Delver? I'm not intimately familiar with the Bully Delver matchup, but on a surface level, it just seems
So
like it lines up very well.
if you're trying to say that you want to be next level, then playing Boros into next week, if we want to take this idea that it's always this revolving rock, paper, scissors, you want to use that theory, then playing Bully is the right deck to play. If you're playing to beat last week, then Mono Blue is the right deck to play, right?
I don't know how far. Okay, so you're not going to make it very far trying to edge against that smaller, meta percentage. Then you're looking at higher percentages of you're going to see Bully more often than Tron, most likely. And I think that trend will continue because Bully's a fine deck. It has a fine Tron matchup. And if everyone's going to walk away with the lesson of we got a game plan for Tron, then Bully's still going to be around next week. And I think that kind of closes off a space for Delver decks. Maybe Is It Delver fixes that a little. Like I said, I'm not at all by any stretch of the imagination expert on the Bully deck. I thought it was kind of a meme deck at first. I was super wrong, and I continue to be wrong about which Boros is favorable, because I thought when Astrolabe got banned that Boros Monarch would be the Boros deck that would rise to prominence again, and that hasn't panned out.
Yeah, I would say Affinity's pretty decently positioned against Bully and Tron.
Yeah.
So they're quick, and you could, I guess, craft a sideboard to just having access to most of the colors, kind of pack the right heat, put a quick clock up against Boros Bully, and maybe what's the Mantle of Tides? Maybe that seems like, I don't know how you kill that. How do you kill a creature with that on it? With Boros Bully. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't claim to be a smart man, but if I was spiking the next challenge, I'd be definitely strongly considering Affinity.
Okay. Yeah, I really don't play any of those decks mentioned. I mean, I guess I've played Monarch quite a bit, but doesn't speak to me. It doesn't get me going, right? Maybe.
Boros is the most boring deck I've ever played, but teach their own.
I feel like it's slow for me. I lose games by just journaling too much, and I don't know. I'm gonna keep playing my thing.
I will say Bully is the more exciting of the two. If I was I remember I was kind of considering Boros Monarch, visiting that grounds for a little bit, and then when I started playing it, I'm like, I really like Faithless Looting as a card. I have more fun when I play with that card, and Bully uses that to a greater effect.
Sure.
I would say it's at the very least the funner of the two, from my perspective.
You like the Battle Screech, Prismatic Strands aspect of those decks, where you just get to a point where the game plan is very clear and it's very absolute. You're going to win. Just smack them in the mouth, in the air.
Yeah, Pauper Spectral Possession, right?
There you go. Trigger your Pauper Windbrisk Heights in the form of Flashback Faithless Looting, perhaps.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. Play a Claw Gut Ranger.
Or
yeah. All right, let's move it along then and talk about good old red decky wins. I think it's due. What was your story coming into Magic, and maybe that affects what decks you like to play the most. And I started in Standard, at least competitively, with the red deck wins of the Lorwyn Morningtide, Shadowmoor Eventide.
That's when you started playing with Lorwyn?
I mean, that's when I started knowing what was up and playing competitive.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
My first tournament, I was like, I'm going to play black-white, what was it, Night Sky Mimic? The Mimics from Morningtide? So I was on the black-white one. I was like, I'm going to spike this tournament. This deck's dope. And it was incredibly whack. And I got stomped. And I'm like, Kithkin, that's a good deck. Wow. And then Blue Black Fairies, I was like, y'all are doing stuff. And so then I was like, all right, now I'm going to play mono black. And I picked up Thoughtseize and Bitter Blossom. And I was like, I just jammed that square peg and round hole for a few months. And then I'm like, all right, well, I have these Demigods of Revenge. And then I just ported it over to mono red. And that was like the first deck I kind of attached onto for about a year or so. And
Gotcha.
that probably carries me over into why I like red deck wins and pop so much. Just a good mix of burn and creatures and just kind of a clear game plan. And played 8 whack in modern, so I like bushwhacking in, turn 3, just be like, hiya, and being like, what's up? Are you dead or what? And then, I don't know, Lightning Bolt as a card. I love it, so play that, play Chain Lightning, and just smack face.
That theory you have might have some legs. So my first deck was Stasis, and I gotta say, so ever since then, I think I've been dirtling around. So
Wow.
it makes sense.
Yeah, I like my first deck for real was not for real, but like first deck, if you're absolutely talking about the sense of that question, is like pretty much the elf deck in Pauper, but just casually. But when I started playing competitive, that's what I think kind of trips that tripwire of this theory. But I don't know. I just kind of tend to look at the lands I keep. Like I'll keep the lands when Standard was rotating, and I look back and I'm like, oh, they're all either red black or red green or red white. It's like, oh, I guess I am a red player. Like some flavor of red throughout the years, and
It does hold. That does hold true then, I guess, because since we're all just dropping our old decks, like I started in Esper Control, but after I was terrible at that, and once I started to get more competitive, a learn combo in Type 1.5, one Type 1. I bounced between the two, whatever tournament I was playing, but that's a learn combo is what I played, and I still try to jam janky combos to this day. So there you go.
Dave coming up with a universal theory of player types. Yeah. Just like that on the spot.
Love that janky combo.
But if we're trying to get on topic, I guess, if we want to be. So with Red Deck Wins, I actually played it this week, and I went 1-2, and then proceeded to drop the league out of sheer boredom of the deck. It is by far the most linear game plan I think I've ever experienced. Even throughout all the aggro decks, that are available out there, I've never felt like there was just such a turn brain off, jam these creatures with a little bit of sequencing here and there, I guess, which creature you want to play first, because you want to play the 1/2/2 that allow you can attack as long as you cast a creature, instead of the one that can attack alone first, or can't attack alone first. But I mean, that's just I think on most levels that's a no-brainer for any person who's not like even relatively new to Magic. But the deck felt like my walk away from the deck was exactly everything that is as advertised. The deck loses to itself in horrible feels bad fashion, where you're just like, oh, I drew 4 lands. I guess this is it. I lose because I drew 4 lands. I didn't get my action. It's just like I was thinking, maybe if light up the stage mysterious or magically ended up in Pauper, maybe I'd feel differently about it. But I don't see that ever happening.
Well, not to pile it on Dave because he loves his deck so much, but I rented it a while ago when I was just looking for more decks to try, and I will say I did only 1v1s with it. I played 3 matches with it, went 3-0. Like I didn't even drop a game. The deck is crazy powerful.
What do you run up against?
If I recall, Mono Blue was one of them. That
Uh-huh.
one was impressive to beat. And I want to say it was like Boros and then like Mono Black. It was like two that it was easier to beat, but
Yeah.
that's besides the point. My point is, never lost a match, returned it, decided not to do a league because, just like you said, I was bored out of my brain. It was just like, like, what is this deck, dude? Like, okay, I play this 2/2. Next turn, I'm gonna play this other 2/2 and attack with this 2/2, and then bolt. Sweet. Like, I don't know, man. It's not my deck.
Yeah,
But-
I mean,
It's powerful.
I've
Powerful,
got
super powerful.
two things. If you're gonna be dumb, you got to be tough. Also, who came up with this idea that Magic is some type of thinking man's game? Like, I want my opponent to do the thinking, so I'm gonna
Sure.
I'm gonna play my 2/2 with drawback into my 2-mana 2/2 with drawback into another 1-drop 2/2 with a drawback into attack for 10, and be like, all right. And then my opponent sits there and squirms, and then I just like casually drop my 2 lightning bolts out of my hand to be like, all right, are we done yet? Like, come on. And then also Taco Bell.
I have legitimately
So-
have no rebuttal for that outside of I don't like Taco Bell. So
Okay.
there you go. That's it.
Yeah.
Like we like to make the game challenging because, or at least I don't speak for everyone here, but like I like playing combo because I like this idea of racing into a deck and assembling the puzzle pieces and hoping I win. Like I love doing that. So I make the game challenging. And Magic is a lot of that is what Magic is, right? You make the game what you want it to be. You decide how you're going to play this game.
yeah,
And-
once.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Keep going.
And red deck wins is another way of doing that, right? If you look at it from the competitive side of things, then a lot of times the meta dictates what deck you want to play based on the archetypes you're comfortable playing. But if you remove that and you look at it outside of the competitive nature, if that's the style of deck you want to play, where it is linear, you know, like the 1 or 2 decisions you need to make based on the cards you have in your hand, like you said, it doesn't have to be a thinking man's game or anything like that. The game, do what you want, man. If that's what you want to play, you want to jam some gobos and throw a goblin grenade at someone, sweet. Sounds great.
I mean,
Well-
when your opponent is a the better your opponent is, the more likely more decisions are going to have less impact. So if you're looking to take Dave literally on this, whole I'm gonna just jam my things and not think, and you're gonna have to do all the thinking. There is a little bit to that. There's a legs to I remember like when fact or fiction end of turn then win days. That was all about decision making and forcing your opponent to make bad decisions. And the more skilled you are, and the more skilled and the less skilled, the bigger the skill gap between you and your opponent, and the more decisions you force them to make, the more likely you are to win the game.
Yeah.
Okay, so I won't go out on the stand and say the deck is tough to play, but I don't want to generally, agree with. It requires no thought. I think it's been said many times where it's like, you could just play it, turn brain off, and you get 85% of the juice from the orange, or 90%, or whatever number you want to say. But to get every part of it, to win the game's like exact amounts. I just honestly shoot from the hip and go off a feeling. Like, I'm not going to sit there and count and be like, ooh, like, if I do this, he's exactly dead. Like, I'll start blocking if I feel like it's shifting. Like, I can get a feeling of a teeter-totter without, like, calculating the tangent and the hypotenuse. I'm like, I feel like I'm going down on this Chirotatter, yo. Like, so I should probably start blocking. Like, or so like you get some really intricate games though. Like, think about like what we just did in Jeskai Pauper, where it was like, I'm gonna take all your chess pieces and smack you in the face with 3 queens. Like, it's okay, I get it. You're winning the card advantage war, but it's not really like, imagine a game of chess where we both have a lot of pieces still, and we're both like maneuvering and counter maneuvering. That to me is like 2 aggressive decks kind of going at it. The games may be shorter, but they can go pretty long. Like if you have 2 red decks against each other and you start blocking and trying to, your graveyards get like 20 deep, and like you're like, wait, what is going on? Aren't you guys supposed to be done with your round already? It's like, yeah, well, they don't always just play out like a pure race of, okay, ignore defense entirely, and we're going to be like the Phoenix Suns just getting 149 points. It's like, no, like we're going to, like, you can tell you're behind, so you start playing defense earlier type of thing. Like, I've had really good games against Chris, although, playing Stompy, where there's a lot going on. It may be a short window if everything goes right for him. But to me, I liken it to the chess example where it's not just me, picking resource battles, but there's like a maneuvering going back and forth. So you do like, I don't know, I like building my advantage into my decks too. And if everybody's going to be on Tron, I'm going to smack them with dudes and then bolt them and be like, all right. And
I mean, it's excellent at beating fog locks.
Right.
Well, I think like that's part of it too. Something that can't be understated is there is a point of like where mastery takes over. Like you can look at the pile and know like this is what I'm doing, but understanding the entire meta, what's in the opponent's deck, and then picking up red deck wins will change how you play your sequence of cards, and you will get better even if it is the same pile of cards in the same meta as you start to learn what is good against this deck, what is good against this deck. Should I mull this hand? Like those decisions still really are important, even in a linear. I'll call it simpler, but there is still challenging decisions to make in red deck wins, in burn, in Stompy. There's still challenging decisions to make in these quicker aggro decks. I don't think that's stated enough. I really don't.
I mean, as someone who's like always on the other side of the table from the red deck wins, Dave brought up like a kind of an interesting thing that I never really, when we're talking about the deck and I'm thinking about that deck, I'm not really stepping into the other matchups the deck. I always think about it through my lens. And that lens is how's it, like, it's always the beatdown to me, but he's talking about who's the beatdown against more aggressive decks. And when you get into those kind of situations, you are talking about more complex board states, more complex lines of play, and trying to figure out your game plan.
Right. So something that I'd like to touch on, we are coming close to time here, but I wanted to bring this up, especially if we're going to be talking about the rock, paper, scissors nature and things like that of Pauper. Red deck wins. I've struggled against it, admittedly. Like, I have not had a walk in the park against this deck. Dave, you beat me with it. I've ran up against it at RAW in paper. I ran up against it online and just been totally obliterated by it. Like turn 3 style with like double grenades and stuff. It's just nuts. So my question is, if you expect red deck wins, or if you see red deck wins across from you, what is your best chance? What is the best deck you should be playing? What is in your sideboard that just beats it?
Lone Missionary, creature removal if it's red deck wins. Like, Burning Tree is tough. Like if you're on a 1-for-1 type of removal deck, they just have a turn where they go Burning Tree into, if one other thing, and if they're on the play, they're putting 2 guys up on you. Like, even if you're doing one thing a turn, removing one at a time. Like, and if them having haste, that each one of them would be a chip 2 damage usually. So I think Lone Missionary is the best. Against Red Deck Winds, you want to have 2 power to trade effectively, and I don't know if Weather the Storm is perfect. I mean, gaining life obviously is what you want, but I think a Lone Missionary and maybe like Spellstutter Sprite seems to do a lot of work. Blue Elemental Blast, obviously, in the board. Just being able to multi-spell to catch up, because you're if they're doing 2/2 on turn 1 pretty much every time into 2/2 with haste or Burning Tree 2/2 with haste type of thing, like you got to start having turns where you're multi-spelling and killing guys and countering spells to not get overrun.
So what is the best deck against Red Deck Winds then?
Walls. I'm not joking though.
Maybe like a Black White Pestilence deck with
Black White Pest. Yeah.
Stompy. Stompy seems pretty rough if the pilot's doing it well. Like I don't think you can beat their best draws.
What about Affinity? Well, you probably have access to Mox Monkey, so maybe that's not as bad. But
What is the Mono Black control match like? Is that still favored for you?
I feel good in that spot. They play a lot of, like, if they don't have early removal, like a ton of it, and they are paying life to draw cards, that's usually a pretty quick victory there.
Yeah.
But like they could, like if you have a 1 toughness guy and they turn 1 Defile and then they Chainer's Edict, and then Oubliette, like if they can play a Gary or a second Gary, like if the game goes that long, then probably going to be tough because they've got 2/2s that trade as well.
I was just thinking like the Defile into Chainers, and then maybe you smack them for a little bit, but then they land like a Crypt Rat, and then it's just GG on their side, right?
Yeah. So, but that's pretty late, like a turn 5, and they probably have paid, Knight's Whisper or Sign in Blood to draw their 5th land on time type of thing. It usually seems like they don't just get to 5 right like without trying. I feel pretty favored in that spot.
Okay.
I was gonna say they don't do a insignificant amount of self damage, and then with Crypt Rats, it's not like you're gonna get to cast that on turn 3, and then like Red Deck Wins is gonna let you keep that on the board. So I mean, you're gonna have to pop that off at 5 for sure.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think is it Delver felt pretty rough on the Red Deck Wins side of it, just because they can interact quite a lot. Augur of Bolas as a card, Balls.
Yeah.
He's pretty good at blocking all day in find removal. Spell Stutter, if it actually counters something, it can start kind of.
They have a Swirling Sandstorm. Is that the threshold one too? That seems pretty decent.
Yeah, if that happens,
comes a little late. Comes a little late, but I mean.
Yeah, I would guess Boros Bully seems really tough for the Red Deck Wins if they can start connecting with the Seeker on the crackback and
Cop Red.
Boros seemed like the one that I was going to say, but I was just kind of wondering if Boros is still just too slow.
Yeah, I guess their draw could be slower. Your nut draw would ignore and just be able to, steamroll. But Boggle seems miserable. Like for the Red Deck Wins, I don't feel great about hoping to like electrickery their guy before they do anything. Like they could just. I don't know. That feels really miserable. Like it feels like we were talking, Stompy versus Elves miserable.
All right. Well, we kind of are at time. Any other notes about Red Deck Wins? Because there's one more thing I wanted to do at the end of this cast. But anything else about Red Deck?
Don't play it. My decks I typically play outside of walls, which absolutely smashes it because they have big booties. It just gets completely steamrolled by the deck, so stop playing that deck. I don't like you for playing it. You're bad and you should feel bad.
So I like playing it against like elitist Tron players and making them feel bad. So if you've got some of those at your meta, then make them taste it.
All right. So to close the show out, I wanted to actually ask any of the listeners out there, if you go to our website and look for the email us or shoot over to Facebook or go on to Reddit when we post the link, I kind of want to find out from you guys what you want to hear about on the show. And I'd also like to hear who you guys want to participate in the upcoming league that I'm working on. I have probably enough to fill it out, but I kind of want to just ask. Outsourcing, I'm questioning you guys that are listening to this, like, who would you like to see? You know, whether it be Alex Allman or, which I'm sure we will probably get him. But
let me stop you real quick. Have you put out information on what this league is yet, or do you want to talk about it?
We talked about it in the last show. We're doing
Okay.
we're doing a Team Unified Pauper League. I'm still working on the details as far as what the prize support is and who's involved in it. I'm trying to aim for December. I did talk to John over at RIW about how to structure it, so I have a really good idea how to do that now. And it's really just getting the teams on board and then sitting down and like hammering out the layout, like getting OBS, getting all the teams on board, and going from there. But I probably could do the teams right now. I could lock it in and we can move forward. But I'd like to give it a week and see if listeners want to bounce back anything to us.
Or if you're a content creator and you are interested in getting in the league, reach out to us, please.
Yeah, for sure.
This gate's open. We love the more the merrier kind of thing, yeah.
And we'll tell you if we don't like you, and we'll just tell you no. So I mean, that'd be.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
So, want to take us out of here or what?
Take us away, Dave.
All right. Thanks you guys for listening. Submit your comments, your questions, any decks you want to see us play, or if you just want to call us names, that's cool too. But thanks for listening. Brought to you by RW Hobbies. Check them out if you're in Southeast Michigan. Check Reddit. Post on Reddit if you don't know where to play Pauper in your area, and say, hey, Pauper in Sacramento, what's up? Where is it? And people help you find out where to play, or you just call stores up and be like, hey, do you guys play Pauper? What's up? You should. And that's it. That's all I got.
Also play
We out
Lance.
here.
Later.
Play Lance.
I'm here, Bruce Tao Kali, Bruce to the tree, Spruce to the Lee, Dave.
What was that?
All right, we can just start over. Let's redo it.
He had a stroke.